Okay, have you ever been sat at your desk or that's what you so you've been sat at your desk and you suddenly go, oh, and you look at your watch or your clock and 10 minutes have disappeared and you don't know where those 10 minutes have gone. You've been
Mm,
daydreaming. Another great example is you go on a journey of, say, 4 hours, 3, 4 hours. You get to your destination, you turn the engine off, you close the car door, you lock it. And before you take a step, you say to yourself, how did I get here? What? Yeah, I mean, I've just got out of the car, I'm at my destination, but how did I get here? You were driving on autopilot.
mm,
So essentially, what hypnosis does, it allows the conscious mind, the bit that's listening to us now, the bit I'm talking, the part of you that's thinking about what you're going to have for dinner tonight, all that kind of good stuff. It allows that part of the brain to take a break, and it allows the powerhouse, the unconscious mind, the bit that kind of does all of the work behind the scenes. It allows that part of the mind to come forward to help the therapist, help the client find out what's going on and look at ways of resolving that issue.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where our mission is to empower you to live your best, audacious life ever. It's always a pleasure to be here with you, and I deeply appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us for this enlightening conversation. Together, we're going to explore the transformative strategies and insights that can help you break through the barriers holding you back from achieving your goals and living a fulfilling life. Now, imagine you're a bird nestled comfortably in a cozy nest. While it feels safe and warm, you can't help but gaze longingly at the vast sky that's just beyond your reach. And this is where overcoming perfectionism and the fear of failure comes into play. Just like that bird, you might be hesitant to spread your wings and soar, bound by the fear of falling or not flying perfectly. Yet, the only way to experience the freedom of the skies and discover your true potential is to take that leap of faith. By confronting perfectionism and the fear of failure, you unlock the happiness and personal growth that lie waiting for you beyond the nest. Today's guest is Paul Wilson. He's an experienced hypnotherapist and coach with a remarkable background in helping individuals overcome personal barriers. After spending 25 years in the corporate world, Paul transformed his life following an accident that led him to discover the power of hypnotherapy. He now dedicates his expertise to guiding others in overcoming obstacles such as procrastination, self-sabotage, and perfectionism. With a passion for fostering personal growth, Paul has become a beacon of hope for many seeking to unlock their full potential. His journey and expertise make him exceptionally relevant to our discussion today as we delve into the importance of overcoming perfectionism and the fear of failure. His insights into hypnotherapy will provide valuable tools and strategies for listeners to tap into their unconscious minds and make meaningful changes in their lives. So now that we've got you all set, let's turn to our conversation with Paul. Enjoy. Hey, Paul, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you taking the time to do this, my friend.
You're absolutely welcome, Audley. I love a good spirited conversation, and I will travel thousands of miles or even from my sofa to my PC to have one.
Hey, listen, man, I'm with you all the way, and I think spirited conversations are just a wonderful way of learning and growing and sharing together. And so I appreciate you being here. You know, on this podcast, we spend much time talking about the different ways we can live this best audacious life that we talk about. We sort of liken it to a pathway, right? We're all on an individual journey, our individual path, and along that way, there's things that may come up that may impede our progress, that may slow us down, and some instances might even stop us. Some of those things, and we'll talk about this, are generated by our own selves. Some from external, but regardless of where it comes from, we have an obligation to continue to push through, continue to go beyond those things that are holding us back. Because I truly believe that sort of on the other side of those obstacles, those struggles, those challenges is where the greatness lies. And so it's just that's more reason why we have to push ahead, regardless how tired or exhausted we may feel. So maybe as a starting point, because I know a lot of the themes that you work with respects to, help people overcome things like procrastination and self-sabotage and even like perfectionism are all things that you spend time in. So maybe as a starting point, I'd ask you maybe just to introduce yourself to audience, give our listeners a chance to understand a little bit about the work you do and what's brought you to the point that you're at now.
Okay, cool. Before we do that, you said something really interesting there. You said we have an obligation to overcome these things. And that's a really interesting choice of word, because I would have said we have a choice, because so many people choose not to fight. They choose to give up. Conversely, lots of people say, you know what, screw this. This is a block. I'm going to go around it, over it, under it, through it, because I am choosing to progress, to advance, to do things differently. And that's where I kind of come in. I'm a hypnotherapist and a coach, and I help people in general terms find a way through, over, under, or around that thing that's blocking them.
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, Audley, it's the person themselves. It's a self-generated, a self-inflicted, a self-created block that comes from up here in our imagination. How did I get here? Well, that depends how long you've got, to be honest. I spent 25 years in the corporate world. In 2017, around about now, actually, it's my Independence Day. I got knocked off my bicycle on the way to the office, and I broke my arm, my right arm, either side of my right elbow. And that meant that I was useless for 6 weeks. So I sat at home and I'm thinking, do I stay? Do I go? Do I stay? Do I go? Because I'd been transferred into a role that really wasn't me. I was an ops guy, and now they're asking me to do lots of different things that just didn't sit right with me. But anyway, so I went back to the office. And you know what it's like after a long absence? You're fighting way through the email. You're chopping down the door to get into your office. You're trying to get everything working again because you've been away for so long.
Right.
And I'm doing that. And the head of HR, Nick, walks past my office and goes, "Hey, Paul, how's the arm?" No, I still to this day don't know where this came from, but I went, "Nick, my arm is great, but have you got a minute?" And he said, yeah, come round to the office. Long story short, I went round to his office. We had a chat. And about 8 weeks later, on the exact date of my 25th anniversary in the corporate world, I was out. A massive leap into the dark. And the funny thing was, I was going to become a photographer because photography is a passion of mine.
Mhm.
Now, I made a really huge mistake here, because instead of doing my research before taking the leap, I
Mhm.
took the leap and then did my research.
Wow.
And so I started asking all these people that had been in the industry for a long time, how do I get started? How do I get in? How do I make money as a photographer? And every single one of them went, "Paul, do you love photography? Are you passionate about photography?" Yeah, that's me, that's me, that's me. And they all said, don't become a photographer, because you'll spend years and years and years working for nothing, really slogging it, and you'll end up hating the very sight of a camera. I went, well, that's great news, isn't it? What do I do now? I can't go back to the office because
Right.
I've made the leap. And so, long story short, I'd taken on a personal trainer because I was got a bit chubby and I wanted to try to lose some fat, put on some muscle. And one day was sitting there doing the workout. Well, I'm doing the workout. He's giving me grief, and he
Yep.
goes,
Yep.
"Paul, what are you doing this weekend?" And I went, "I've got nothing planned." He said, "Did you know my wife and I were hypnotherapists, and we've got kind of like an open day try before you buy weekend? Come along. You're a client, so you don't have to pay." Cool. So I went along, and there's about 5 of us sitting in my PT's living room. And I got assigned to work with this lady who had a tremendous fear of snakes and anything that wriggles around. Now, here in the UK, it's a pretty ridiculous phobia because we only have one venomous snake in the UK, and you've
Okay.
got more chance of being hit by lightning and
Right.
winning the lottery on the same day as you have seen one of these things. So
No, no,
anyway,
no one's his fears are logical, right?
exactly. So we did the work, and we got a result because I've got my phone. I said, I'm going to show you a picture of a snake. And she said, no, 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 no. She started crying and all that. And at the end of the day, she said, yeah, no problem, bring it on. And I could show her a picture of snake, show her a video. And that was kind of okay, but it didn't kind of push any buttons. The very next day, however, she sent me a video because her and the family love to go out for a walk in the woods. Dad thinks he's Steven Spielberg, so he's videoing everything. And you can hear Dad in the background go, careful, darling, look, there's a big worm in your path. You have to take a step around it. And she goes, no, 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 no. And very gently, very carefully, it's her hands and knees, scoops this worm up in her hands, carries it over to like a chunk of grass, and very gently, very softly lays it on this grass. The husband can't believe what he's seeing. He nearly drops his camera, launches a stream of expletives, and I go, wow, I've got a superpower. So I went back to my PT, said, who trained you? Went to work with him. Who trained you? And I did that as far up the ladder as I could possibly go. I read every book, bought every course, and I just completely fell in love with hypnosis and hypnotherapy because it can do some incredible things. No, it can't cure cancer. It can't grow back a limb if you've lost one in an accident, unfortunately.
Right.
But it can do an awful lot to help people, specifically, with blocks, with helping you get out of your own way. And I
Right.
just love what I do. It's such an amazing thing.
And imagine sort of confidence is a big part of what hypnosis can offer to people. Is that fair to say?
From two sides. As a hypnotherapist, you have to exude confidence. You've got to be a confident person because if a client comes to you and you go, yeah, I think I might be able to help you, but I'm not really sure. That doesn't express confidence in your own abilities. And the
Right.
client's going to go, whoa, I think I'm going to go somewhere else.
Right.
So you have to be very confident as a therapist. And also from the client perspective, the most important thing from their end is they must want to have this thing gone. When I do a consultation call with a client or potential client, I do this one thing every single time. I say, imagine a scale with 0 at the bottom and 10 at the top. 0 means, you know what, this thing doesn't really bother me that much. 10 is, oh my God, I want it gone yesterday.
Hmm.
Where are you on that scale? Now, if the client says to me, well, Paul, you know what, I'm a 4 or a 5, then I will say to them, you know what, come back and see me in 6 months' time because they're not ready yet. They're not going to have the discipline, the motivation, the
Yep.
desire to get this thing gone. But if they come to me and go, Paul, I'm a 10, I'm a 12, then I know that they are in the right place and we can get some work done, get this thing gone.
Gotcha. It's interesting because I would imagine for those on the outside that aren't familiar with hypnosis or just hear about it, they're skeptical beyond belief because like, how can you suddenly put someone to sleep and get all of a sudden they're barking like a dog or squawking like a chicken or something like that. But the reality is there's some inner work that happens through that process. I wonder if you can, if you're way to sort of describe that, Paul, just a bit for people to understand kind of what happens when you work with someone and what that looks like.
Okay. Have you ever been sat at your desk or that's what so you've been sat at your desk and you suddenly go, oh, and you look at your watch or your clock and 10 minutes have disappeared and you don't know where those 10 minutes have gone. You've been
Mhm.
daydreaming. Another great example is you go on a journey of say 4 hours, 3, 4 hours, you get to your destination, you turn the engine off, you close the car door, you lock it, and before you take a step, you say to yourself, how did I get here? What? Yeah, I mean, I've just got out of the car, I'm at my destination, but how did I get here? You were driving on autopilot. So
Mm.
essentially what hypnosis does, it allows the conscious mind, the bit that's listening to us now, the bit I'm talking, the part of you that's thinking about what you're going to have for dinner tonight, all that kind of good stuff. It allows that part of the brain to take a break and it allows the powerhouse, the unconscious mind, the bit that kind of does all of the work behind the scenes, it allows that part of the mind to come forward to help the therapist, help the client find out what's going on and look at ways of resolving that issue. So you
Mm.
mentioned about going to sleep. Well, generally speaking, when someone goes into trance, they're not actually in a sleep state. Now, it might seem that way, But when you're asleep, you're kind of literally unconscious, you're zonked out, you're dead to the world.
Hmm.
That's no good to me as a therapist. I need you to be in a state, when you go to bed at night, Audley, and you're just about to go to sleep and your mind is drifting, you're kind of really calm, really relaxed. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's that state that I'm looking for, not the sleep state, because the sleep
Right.
state, pretty much the unconscious turns off, apart from all the autonomous activities to keep us alive, like breathing, as an example, and blood flow, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But that's not good enough for us. We need it to be a little more active.
Gotcha. I actually thank you for explaining that. I didn't realize it was at another level, if you will. I just thought you were asleep and that was it. But there's that I guess that zone that you're talking about that you're not. You're it's like a sleep state. You said right. So that sleep state.
It's for some clients, they when we finish the work, it's what happened? What's just
Right.
gone on? Where have I been for the past hour? Other people are kind of on the cusp, yeah, they're on the edge, and they
Mm,
they are still there, but they're not there, if that makes sense. So they know we've had a conversation, they've been kind of participating in the conversation, but they're not quite sure. And some people they just completely flaked out and they don't know what went on. Yeah, but it's not sleep, because sleep is a deeper level where
right.
we are literally dead to the world, apart from those systems that keep active to keep us alive. And that's not
Gotcha.
really where we want to be when we're doing hypnosis. We need to be at a higher level. The state, that's kind of between sleep and awake. That's why that state, you're just going to bed, you're in bed and you're drifting off, you're kind of thinking about your day and very, very gently kind of slide into sleep. And it's that area where you're kind of sliding off towards sleep that we work in.
Got you. Got you. The and what makes that state so susceptible to work with and effective, I guess is the word I'm thinking.
The easiest way to explain that, Audley, is that the conscious bit, the rational bit, the logical bit goes and takes a break.
Okay.
Because when we're being logical, well, I'm very skeptical about hypnosis. Hypnosis doesn't work, blah, 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 blah. We're still thinking, we're still being active mentally. And when we're active mentally, when the conscious mind is thinking about what it's going to have for dinner tonight, the fact that it's got to drive to the office, I've got a meeting at 2 o'clock, and this and that, and this and that, and this and that, the brain is too busy to actually do any work. We need the brain to be calm and relaxed and receptive. So you can see that sleep is no good because it can't be receptive when you're asleep, but also when you're wide awake and your brain is fizzing, that's no good to us either, because we need that little bit in between. That's the area that we need to work in, because that gives us how can I put this? The cooperation that we need
Okay.
from the unconscious mind. When the body's asleep, we don't have any cooperation because there's no activity. When
Hmm.
we're fully awake and
Yep.
conscious, we've got no chance, because the conscious brain, well, no, what's happening now, Audrey? What are you doing? Okay, well, you're trying to hypnotize me. What's going on? Yeah, okay, and it's just too active.
Right. Right. And inquisitive and probably difficult to work with.
All of that. And you said something about skeptical people. This is ironic, but skeptics usually make the best clients.
Oh,
They
tell me
usually
why.
make
I'm
the best.
curious. I'm curious.
I'm still trying to figure out why, but I think it's because they've actually thought about it and they've considered it and they've looked at it from both angles. It's like if I say to you, don't think of an apple, what comes to your mind?
An apple.
An apple. So if you've been thinking about hypnosis and hypnotherapy, and you know what, I'm really skeptical about hypnosis. I don't think hypnosis can work, and you could never hypnotize me. So you're kind of already putting yourself into a state because you've been thinking about it. And even though you've been thinking about it from a kind of like a negative perspective, the brain doesn't know the difference, which is
Mm,
why language is so important. I'll try. I hate that word try. I'll
mm,
try to be there on time. I'll try to get this report finished. I'll I'll try to do this thing. When you say try, it means you're going to make a half-assed attempt to do it. It means your heart isn't in it. You're not really going to make any kind of effort. You're just going to try. I mean, when you actually say the word try,
Right.
it doesn't sound very positive, very aspirational. I'm going to do my best. Now, the results may be the same.
Sure.
When you say, I'm going to do my best, you're going to give it your best effort. But if I say, I'll try, there's no effort at all.
Right.
So
Right.
the language, going back to skeptics again, they've been talking about hypnosis, thinking about hypnosis. So yeah, they're much easier to hypnotize.
It's I do appreciate your point around the language that we use, because I do agree with you, and it's so much of our ability to be for us to be successful, or gain any sort of significant accomplishment starts with the things that happen in our head and our minds, that in that inner conversation. So not even what you verbalize, but even what you say also is equally important too, right?
Absolutely. It's like affirmations. Most affirmations don't work for a very simple reason. You're trying to fool yourself. The
Hmm.
classic example, I'm going to be rich. I'm really going to be rich. This time in 5 years, I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to be a millionaire. I'll be really rich. I'll have the house, the car, da 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 da. Da. Your unconscious mind goes, no chance. You actually got no chance. You haven't even got $5 saved up in your bank account. You're
Right.
earning minimum wage. You spend all your time down the pub. You're doing nothing. You've got no chance. So that affirmation, I'm going to become a millionaire, won't work because the unconscious mind can't connect with it. It's not true. You're doing nothing towards becoming a millionaire. Now, however, if you've got a savings account, if you've got a second job where the money from that second job is going into a savings account,
Hmm.
if you've got a little side hustle, if you're doing lots of reading about becoming rich, if you
Hmm.
if you're looking into all the aspects and you say to yourself something like, I'm doing what it takes to become a millionaire. I'm
Right.
on my way to becoming a millionaire. I'm doing the work to become a millionaire. Your unconscious mind can get on board with that because the language equals the effort. Because the unconscious mind goes, that's right. Yeah, we have got a savings account and we did start that side hustle. And we talked to that millionaire last week about how he became a millionaire. And
Right.
so, yeah, I can get on board with that. And so the unconscious mind will then start to work with you to help you achieve that goal. But again, it's because of the language you use. And but
Gotcha.
behind the language, there has to be the action as well, because language on its own won't work.
Right. Yep. Yep. So it's interesting on the language, because I want to go back to the very beginning of the chat, and I talked about the word obligation, and you sort of likened it to choice. To be clear, when I talk about obligation, the main reason behind that is so many of us talk about being happy or wanting to be happy. Well, if you want to be happy, then you do have an obligation to yourself to take that step forward and take the necessary steps to be able to do so. But choosing, and I agree with you on I'm with you 100% on sort of what choosing means and important to make that choice. But unhappiness is something that it sort of feels like people choose to be at times.
Absolutely right. You can be happy right now. Are we doing audio only or audio and
Both,
visual?
both.
Both. Okay, right. So if you're watching this, sit up straight, shoulders back, head. Imagine there's a piece of string pulling your head up like this.
Yep.
Think of something that makes you smile. Think of the last time you made love. Think of a great meal you had. Think of a funny friend. Think of something that makes you smile. Now, when I do this, I've linked laughter. So I'm going to start laughing because when I do this now, I've linked happiness and laughter together. Just do this. Paul, you're being ridiculous. I can't possibly. Just humor me, okay? Sit up straight, breathe nice and deep. Think of something that makes you smile. Think of the last time you really had a great time. Maybe you were out this weekend with some friends. I don't know, maybe you'd gone to the pub or you'd gone fishing or you'd gone to a party. Think of something that makes you happy, that makes you feel happy. And I guarantee that right now you are feeling happy. Now, do this. His shoulders down, look down to the ground, speak really kind of slow, put some sadness in your voice. think of a time when, things didn't go too well, because we like to think about times when things didn't go well. And I
Right.
guarantee that you're feeling pretty crappy right now. Happiness does not exist in the outside world. Happiness is an inside job. You can be happy most of the time because, yeah, there are times when it's not appropriate to be happy,
Yep.
obviously, yeah, but you can be happy most of the time if you choose to be happy. Like I just said a second ago, most people like to dwell on things going bad. They like to dwell on the fact they've got a big bill coming and they don't know how they're going to pay it. They like to dwell on the fact that they had a girlfriend last year and she dumped me because of X, Y, and Z, and I feel really upset and depressed. Yeah, you're going to feel crap. If you think about things that make you feel bad, you are going to feel bad
Right. Right.
all day long.
There's a
But
connection, is what you're
conversely,
saying. There's a connection.
yeah, the connection is, if you want to be happy, literally carry yourself upright. We are no longer chimps. We don't need to be on the floor crawling around. We are upright. We grew two legs so that we could see ahead and look for, threats and opportunities. So if you're hunched over, you're automatically going to feel down. But if you sit upright, carry yourself properly, breathe nice and deeply, and smile. When you smile, you can't help but feel happy.
Mm.
It's genetically wired or something. When you smile, you now, okay, if you do a fake smile, yeah, that ain't gonna work. But when you do a genuine smile,
Right.
I mean, you're walking down the street and somebody smiles at you, goes, "Hey, good morning." Do you feel better than you did 5 seconds earlier? Of course you do.
Yes, you do.
Happiness is an inside job. You can be happy, and this sounds really trite, but even in the most difficult of circumstances, you can find a way to think about something pleasant.
Yeah.
There's a phrase, there's a Persian phrase from thousands of years ago. This too shall pass. No matter what situation, if you've been in it for 10 years or
Yep.
5 years or 15 minutes, it will end at some stage. So if you focus on getting out of the thing rather than being in the thing,
Yes.
you can start to feel a bit more optimistic. You might not
Mhm.
feel like smiling. I get it. I understand.
Yep.
We've
Yep.
all been there. Yeah.
Yep. Like
But you can
something bad has
feel
happened to you.
better.
So absolutely, I agree with you. You may not feel like it, but you still can.
Yeah, absolutely. But if you dwell on that bad thing, I was married for 25 years and he left me, and I feel really sad and depressed because nobody wants me anymore. How do you know nobody wants you? There are 8 billion people on this planet. How many people have you spoken to about, getting friendly with them, about building a relationship potentially? If you don't talk to people, you can't start a relationship, but you can feel really miserable. You can feel really pissed off because, nobody loves me anymore, and I feel really sad and lonely and depressed. That's a choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay, we grieve. Of course, we grieve, but grief hits people differently,
Sure.
and you can choose to move, like you were saying, Audley, in your introduction. You can choose to move forward with your life when you want to. Yeah. But if you choose not to, then you're going to still be stuck in this mire of unhappiness and self
Right.
pity and low self worth and all of that kind of grief.
I'm reminded of a story once. I was a friend of mine. He was going through a very, very challenging period. Um, and it was tough for him. It was very, very difficult, and he was trying to find ways to get out of it, and it just he wasn't able to, and so he was very, very unhappy, depressed, not in a good place. And I remember his family was having sort of this family function, and I've known him for many years. I know he very much appreciates and enjoys being around his family, and so we're at this event, and I actually took a picture, and when I looked at the photo, I'm looking at my phone like, wow, like I didn't even recognize this sad guy because he's got this big, bright, beaming smile on his face, and he felt good. And I went over to him. I said, I just want to show you something. I go, look at this photo. Like, you are supposed to be at the most miserable point in your life right now. And I'm looking at that picture, and you wouldn't tell me that you're feeling anything else but happiness and joy and excitement. And it was like, just remember, and now this is my point here is I think it's so important that we remember and bear in mind the things that give us energy and life and exuberance, and we find happiness and satisfaction. So even when we're going through these difficult and challenging periods, if we can find a way for even just a moment to fall back on that, right? Happiness still can exist.
Happiness is there all the time.
Mm,
And I don't care how long you've been in a difficult situation, you have been happy at some stage in your life. So if you go back to that and bring those memories forward, you can start to feel happier. You can start to see that there will be a way out of this thing, that there is a way forward. The trouble that we have, Audrey, is that too many people, they get themselves into a difficult situation and they put the blinkers on and they just kind of dive into this bad situation and they keep thinking, but you know what? It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. And I'm never going to get out of it. And guess what happens? You don't get out of it because this sounds ridiculous, but we do this ourselves all the time. We find ways to prolong the agony because we keep saying it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. It's going to
right,
get worse. That's what happens. It's like if you're out of a job, yeah, and you may kind of start writing resumes and start sending them off, and you don't get any responses. So what happens? Oh, I'm never going to get a job. Nobody's going to want me. So you stop sending resumes out. You start
right,
talking to people about wanting jobs. You stop posting about it on social media. Oh, nobody's ever going to take me on. And guess what? Nobody ever does because you shut down. You stop
right,
looking for opportunities. Whereas, you know what? Yeah, I sent out 50 resumes, no responses. I'm going to send out another 50. I'm going to talk to every single friend. I've got 5,000 friends on Facebook. I'm going to DM every single one of them. I've got 2,000 connections on LinkedIn. I'm going to message. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get back into work. It's the same person,
right.
but it's a completely different attitude. And the person with the more optimistic attitude is the one that's going to get out of that situation way faster than the other person. Absolutely.
Got you, got you. It's I think it's a nice segue. We talk about happiness, because one of the things that you help people to eliminate is perfectionism, and perfectionism, as my viewpoint, and this is just Audley Stevens' sort of take on it, is that perfectionism is actually a lack of satisfaction or even happiness of where you're at or what you have in front of you, and you're always trying to do better or chase more or get to another level. I wonder if your thoughts on what perfectionism does to us and why it's important for us to eliminate it.
Okay, from my perspective, Audley, perfectionism is procrastination just spelt differently. Because look at it this way. Yeah, I get what you're saying. And in certain circumstances, I completely agree. But I had a client
Hmm.
and she was a sales and marketing director for a large organization. She stopped work to raise a family. Kids get to the age where they're more independent. They can go to school by themselves. So she says, you know what? I don't want to go back into the corporate world, but I want to start my own thing.
Hmm.
So we get all the business cards, all the kind of peripheral stuff we do, get a website built, and we're going to launch this website on, say, the 1st of May. The 1st of May comes along and she's about to hit the go button and she notices that there's a typo on the homepage.
Yep.
So she doesn't launch. Got to fix this typo. It's got to be perfect. Okay, so we'll go with 1st of June. 1st of June comes on. She's ready to push that button and she notices that on the About Me page, there's 2 photographs and they're not quite in alignment the way she wants them. I
Okay.
can't possibly launch it now. The photographs are all crap. I need to redo it. And this happens 3 or 4 times. She contacts me and goes, Paul, my perfectionism is getting in the way. So we did some work and we worked out that it wasn't perfectionism, it was a fear of failure because the perfectionism was stopping her starting, was stopping her launching. Because what can happen when you launch? It can be a great success, it can be a mediocre success, or it can just fall off a cliff and disappear into nothingness.
Right.
Well, so one of those 3 things can happen when you launch anything. And my client was so scared of it falling off a cliff and disappearing to nothingness that she couldn't take that chance that would happen. So every excuse under the sun to not launch the thing, because I'm a perfectionist. It has to be just right. And so clearly, well, not clearly, to her it wasn't clear, but when we sat down and started doing the work, we figured out that it was that fear of failure, which goes way back to when she was a kid and an event that happened with her father, who was a senior VP with a large organization, and he kind of criticized her for something. So she had to be perfect. Yeah. And everything had to be a success.
Yep.
And that worked up until she stopped to have the family. Yeah. And then we
Right.
had the family, because with families, nothing's perfect with families, because kids are barfing, they don't eat, they eat
Yep.
too much, they eat the
You're
wrong
trying to
things,
survive, man. You're trying to
toxic.
survive.
You know, you're surviving on just pure adrenaline with a family.
Yeah.
Everybody knows this. And so all that kind of stuff goes out the window. But then when she wanted to start the thing again, the whole stuff from the childhood kicked in. And she'd have been still trying to get this thing off the ground if she hadn't chosen to work with me. It took us a couple of hours to get it sorted out. And man, she's got a thriving little business now as a consultant.
Good, good, good. Um, on hypnosis specifically, uh, like does it always work? Like, can anyone be hypnotized to make and sort of make those changes to better themselves? Or when doesn't it work? Maybe I don't know if that's a better way of asking the question.
Okay. There's a saying in the hypno world that, you know, everyone can be hypnotized, but I can't hypnotize everyone.
Okay.
Yeah. The reason being that it's like rapport. Now, I can meet you for a coffee and we can just hit it off. Yeah. We can become really good friends. We have a really great conversation like we're having today. Now, conversely, you know, we might meet for a coffee or might sort of meet up to do this conversation and it just falls flat. You don't like me either. Something doesn't gel. Yeah.
Mm,
For whatever reason. And that's the same when you get a potential client. And it's not just hypnosis, it's for anything. You know,
gotcha.
you go and see a new doctor because you've got a problem and you have a feeling you just don't like this new
Yep.
doctor. She's
Yep.
not gelling with you. So you don't work with that doctor, you go somewhere else. And it's the same with hypnosis. You can, you know, as a therapist, as a hypnotherapist, you do your best to kind of build a rapport, put your client at ease so that you can work with them. And that starts before you actually do the work. I use my consultations basically to find out three things. Can I help this person? That's the first thing, because there are times when I can't help them.
Yep.
Second is, are we a good fit? Do we have that rapport? Is there that kind of energy? And the third reason is, are they ready? You know, I talked about the scale earlier on. If they're a 3, 4, or a 5, I can't help them right now. And I don't want to waste their money because I know it's just not going to work.
Right.
If they're a 7, 8, 9, 10, then yeah, absolutely. So that's why my consultation is a bit of coaching thrown in to see if I can help them right there and then with some bits and pieces. And then, can I help them? Are we a good fit? And are they ready? That's, I kind of would say, is when you are in a situation where it will work. There are times when it won't work, and
Right.
that's when it's not just like have you heard of CPTSD? You've heard of
CP.
PTSD.
Yes.
So, post-traumatic
Yeah.
stress
Yeah.
disorder. Yeah. CPTSD is complex.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So PTSD, generally speaking, is one major event or 3 or 4 events that cause you trauma. Yeah,
Right.
started with veterans and then kind of spread out to emergency workers and then
Yep.
the general population. CPTSD is where someone has suffered years of trauma. Now, trauma doesn't mean physical or sexual abuse. It can be neglect, and with a small n, like your parents never said that they loved you, that they never encouraged you,
Right.
they
Right.
never did anything to help you grow as a person. And when you become an adult, you find that you can't move forward, that you become a people pleaser because you're
Mm,
desperate for attention. Your parents never gave you any, so you're desperate for it. That is the kind of challenge where you can't do that in 1 or 2 or 3 sessions. It's going to take
Right.
quite a long time. Now,
Right.
with hypnosis, we can still help those clients, but it takes longer because
Yes.
it's so much more stuff to resolve.
And I think too, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the that individual, it's not about let me go see Paul, fix everything. That individual, there's some pre work that has to be done. Maybe being aware of kind of what the issues are, maybe being committed to it, making sure there's a belief that this is the path that's going to assist me, as opposed to the skepticism, which I know you like skeptics, but I mean, that could be part of it. But the idea, my point is, there's some things that I need to do for myself to to be in a state where this process of hypnosis can be successful.
Okay, that's a great point, actually. Um, a bit like selling, where we can be problem unaware. I used to get lots of wives and girlfriends contact me, go, Paul, my husband, he's drinking too much. And my
Mm-hmm.
first question is, does your husband know he's drinking too much? No, no, no. For him, it's fine to have, 4 or 5 beers a night or 2 bottles of wine a night. But I'm really sorry, I can't help because
Right.
he's not aware. So that's the first issue.
Yep.
Second issue is, you know, a client knows they've got a problem, but they don't know what to do about it, or they just, yeah, I've got a problem, but so what? Can't help them. Now, I know I've got a problem, but I don't know there's a solution. So I'm
Right.
going to start doing some research. That kind of in 3 and 4. And the clients that most people kind of market to in all areas are the people that know they've got a problem, they found a solution, and they're looking for someone to help them now. That's kind of like the top 3% of the market, really. And that's where you need to be. You need to know you've got a problem. You need to know that
Right.
2 bottles of wine a night isn't good for you and you want to
Mm-hmm.
stop. And you need to know why you want to stop. I want to stop because my wife is threatening to leave me, or I got a DUI yesterday because even though I hadn't drunk that day, I was still under the influence. My boss has told me that I'm coming to work smelling of booze and looking really, and so
Right.
I'm
Right.
going to lose
Right.
my job. So you've got to know that you have a problem, and you've got to want to resolve that problem.
Got you.
So hence the, like the 8, 9, or 10 on the scale.
Got you. No, I think that's great. Thank you for raising that point, and sort of clarifying that, because again, we've got some work that we need to do to again just be successful overall. Speaking of success, this has been a wonderful conversation, Paul. I got to tell you, I appreciate the insights and the learnings and the perspectives on the things that hypnosis can do in our everyday lives. For individuals that want to learn more about your work, or possibly even connect with you to work with you, where could we send them?
Best place to find me, my website is ahappyhead.co.uk. A happy head is all one word, and then .co.uk. I mean, I'm all over social media as well, but my website is probably the best point of contact.
Love it, love it. No, that's spectacular. Thank you for that. We'll make sure that the contact details in the show notes below. Paul, this has been great, man. I really appreciate you doing this, and congratulations.
Thank you so much. And before I go,
Yeah,
just one final thing.
sure.
Your mind is often the last thing on your mind. I'll say that one more time. Your mind is often the last thing on your mind. Thanks, Audley. Conversation's been brilliant. You're a great host. Cheers.
Thank you. You are a fabulous guest, Paul. Thank you. All the best. Back, we are here on the podcast, and much thanks to Paul for being here. In our conversation, he highlighted that perfectionism often serves as a mask for deeper fears, particularly the fear of failure. He emphasized that many people become paralyzed by their desire for perfection, which ultimately leads to procrastination and stagnation. Paul shares a powerful message. At the heart of overcoming these challenges lies the understanding that happiness is an inside job. By shifting our mindset and embracing the idea that it's okay not to be perfect, we can cultivate a sense of fulfillment and progress. This journey requires courage and the willingness to confront our fears, but it's through this process that we can truly soar and live our audacious lives. If you want to learn more about Paul and his work, I'd encourage you to connect with him directly. And of course, the contact details will be located in the show notes below. And I encourage you to discover more about, his services and insights. Additionally, Paul is offering a complimentary consultation for first-time clients, allowing you to experience the transformative power of hypnotherapy firsthand. Certainly don't miss the opportunity to take the first step towards unlocking your potential. I got to thank you for joining us on another edition of the Audacious Living Podcast. I hope you found value in our conversation with Paul, and I hope it was inspiring and insightful for you as you navigate your own journey towards living audaciously. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider following, or subscribing, or sharing with family and friends if you haven't already done so, because of course that's how we make this podcast grow. Remember, living an audacious life starts with you. Take that leap and spread your wings. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.